Live from Bryant-Denny Stadium with special guests, feature stories, and a comprehensive look at Alabama's upcoming game. It's Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23. Brought to you by Alpha.
And good morning, everybody, and happy game day. Those words are music to most of our ears. I'm Gary Harris, and you're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff here on WVUA 23. We're ready to go for the next hour. We've got you covered, an in-depth look into this upcoming game. And let's get started, as we always do, on CTKO, now in its 11th season, with Bama Headlines.
For the latest on the Crimson Tide, you don't need the newspaper. You need Bama Headlines.
Well, you know, oftentimes Bama saves its best for opening day. All the time, really. Under Nick Saban, Alabama is 13-0 in season openers and has beaten its opponents on average by more than 30 points. That's unbelievable. And Alabama is favored by 28 points tonight against Missouri. Well, the only Tide player we know will not play against Mizzou is Ronald Williams, the junior college transfer defensive back. Coach Nick Saban says he has a broken arm, so he from Hutchinson, Kansas Community College is out. It's also possible that Alabama defensive end Christian Barmore will be unable to play because of a knee. Barmore did not work in the final preseason scrimmage 2 weeks ago, so we'll see on number 58. We've got a stacked show to kick off season 11 of CTKO, including interviews with Tuscaloosa Mayor Walt Maddox, Alabama Director of Athletics Greg Byrne, Crimson Tide soccer coach Wes Hart, and Missouri insider Dave Matter in our Behind Enemy Lines segment. Now, this was the scene. Less than 24 hours ago outside the Malmore Athletic Complex, Alabama coaches and players loading up the bus for the trip to the airport. OC Steve Sarkisian, one of the first people to board the bus. Those guys have masks, but I know who they are. Landon Dickerson, Alex Leatherwood, and finally you see Miller Forrestall. There's Dylan Moses. You know he can't wait to get on that football field tonight after missing last year with an ACL. Najee Harris could be rolling up the type of numbers that make you an All-American at running back. And Jalen Waddle, you know what I call him, Mr. Excitement. The buses don't roll until the man, and I'm talking about Nick Saban, accompanied by the Director of Football Ops, Ellis Ponder, gets on the bus. Now watch Ponder as he's going to say, okay, coach is on. Let's get ready to roll. Kickoff tonight in Columbia is set for 6 p.m. on ESPN. Well, it's no surprise that Mac Jones is the starting quarterback, but it wasn't just handed to him. A leadership role like that is always earned. Mac Jones started the last 3 games of the 2019 season, replacing the injured Tua Tagovailoa. Alabama beat Western Carolina and Michigan in the Citrus Bowl, but lost to Auburn in a heartbreaker in the Iron Bowl. Jones also started the Arkansas game and won that one. And believe it or not, Nick Saban says both the wins and losses were equally valuable to Jones' development.
Well, I think obviously the more knowledge and experience you get from playing, the mistakes that you make and the good plays that you make all sort of help you develop confidence and sort of increase your chances of playing with consistency by making better choices and decisions.
And that's all you can do, really. You can't focus on everything else, the what-ifs, the this and that's. Just go out there. For me, if I'm in the game, get the ball to the right guy and let all the guys make plays and celebrate when we score and have fun. So that's all I can do, and everything else will just take care of itself.
For Bama fans going into fall camp, they weren't worried about the top 2 wide receivers. The question was who would step into that 3rd spot. Well, John Mechie seems to be the guy. Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle are top-notch, but Mechie is talented but unproven. But he did play in all 13 games last season and had 4 catches for 23 yards. Mechie caught 1 pass from Mac Jones last season in the 2nd quarter of that Western Carolina game for 17 yards.
You know, I think the entire receiver corps, you know, Smitty and Jalen Waddle have been outstanding, you know, through camp. You know, I think all the other guys have made significant improvement. John Mechie got to play some last year, and I think, you know, has continued to progress. And, you know, some of the younger players are creating a lot of competition at the position.
Well, you know, most programs name a starting quarterback, but not Mizzou. No. Head coach Eli Drinkwitz plans on keeping it a secret from us and the Tide coaching staff right up until kickoff. Now, most likely, it's going to be TCU transfer Sean Robinson or Taylor Powell. There is no mystery around the Missouri defense, though. They return 8 starters, and they rely on a lot of experience, and they're pretty good, while Alabama relies on game film to scout its opponent. On Tuesday, Mac Jones showed off his knowledge about the Mizzou defense. Check out this detailed analysis.
You know, on the back end with their cornerbacks, number 14 and number 8, they look pretty good. Number 9, Tyree Gillespie, their safety, and number 1 this year, he switched numbers, Bledsoe. He looks good in the back end. And then 32 is kind of like their workhorse of the defense. Nick Bolton looks really good. They have another good linebacker. He switched to number 11 this year. Their defensive line's really old. I think it's all seniors up there. 78, Kobe, their nose guard, gets off the ball really well. 39, Chris Turner's an edge rusher. They got Trey Williams, number 0, is a defensive end who plays well. So it's really an old defense that focuses on effort.
How about this? Alabama with 16 straight wins when the Tide has opened its SEC schedule on the road. The most recent 0-1 SEC start was back in 1991. Now, Alabama got crushed at Florida 35-0. Then all they did was win 28 games in a row. In 14 consecutive seasons, Missouri has won its first home game of the season. Their last home opening defeat came back in 2005 when they lost to New Mexico 45-13. Alabama's won 26 straight games against the SEC East in the regular season. They last lost to South Carolina in 2010 in Columbia 35-21. This streak includes 5 SEC championship games and the national championship game against Georgia. So postseason and regular season, Bama strong against the SEC East. All right, it is time now to check in on the weather. We've got Christopher Pipkin in with a first check of our weather. Christopher, it's so nice this past week with cooler temperatures, but it feels like it's warmed up a little bit today and has we have a little bit of humidity back.
And that's right, we do have some humidity back in the area, but a beautiful day turning out for us here for a lot of Tuscaloosa. Actually, we're sitting at 78 degrees right now, and that's our high. We're going to reach into the 80s as we do get off to the rest of your afternoon. This is a look at the Walk of Champions. Just a beautiful day to get out and at least do something if you do have any game day activities. A lot of the temperatures across much of the state right now are warming up fairly nicely. As Gary was saying, we're at 78 degrees in Tuscaloosa, still hanging on to those 60s where that cloud coverage is still up prominent up there. But for Tuscaloosa, we're actually pretty nice down here. A great day to actually get out again and just enjoy the nice weather, maybe enjoy watching the game outside if you can, if that's available to you. Now, here's what we're looking like. We're timing this out here for your temperatures. This is kickoff towards the game here as we're going in here to Tuscaloosa. We're going to be beautiful here, but what about for our over there towards Mizzou? What are they going to be like? Looks like we're going to have a beautiful kickoff. Really, though, Gary, I don't think we could have asked for any better weather.
All right, Christopher, we may let you stick around. You kept bringing us weather like that, and it looks like it's going to be beautiful tonight in Columbia. Well, still to come, Alabama finds a familiar face to coach up its pass rushers, and a health check going into this season features All-American potential. We'll tell you which impact players are on the mend. Plus, we'll go back to school and check in with the high school coach of Crimson Tide freshman starter Malachi Moore, find out what makes him such a quick study in the game of football.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
It wasn't much going into the decision. I mean, it was just a bad taste left in my mouth from the past season. I mean, we went 11-2, and I don't want to end my college career on a bad note like that.
The best way to describe Crimson Tide linebacker Joshua Mcmillan is that he's ready to take care of some unfinished business. Last preseason, Mcmillan was running first team at inside linebacker when he suffered a season-ending knee injury, an ACL tear. His career got a reprieve when he applied for and got a special medical hardship for a 6th season of college football. And going into this year, Mcmillan is listed at will linebacker just behind starter Christian Harris. Well, Mcmillan is one of 2 would-be defensive starters that missed the entire 2019 season. Another one, defensive end LeBron Ray, was injured in week 3 last season and missed the final 10 games. So Moses and Mcmillan out the whole year. LeBron Ray missed a lot of time too. WVUA 23's William Galloway is in our newsroom. William, it's tough to imagine the impact of getting these 3 players back and healthy.
Right, Gary. I mean, those guys are so excited for football. They're excited to be back. Bama fans are excited to see them tonight, and especially Moses and Ray. They're really excited for the season, and medically they're feeling good and ready to roll. We all know Dylan Moses was out all of last year, and LeBron Ray's lower leg injury in the South Carolina game sidelined him for the rest of the season. Well, they're both back and healthy. Their leadership on the defensive side of the ball and in the locker room has grown, but so has their playmaking ability. It's obvious that they're ready to go out there and hit the guy in the other uniform.
It's going to be great for me. With last year, me being out, I've learned a lot. So, you know, just to be back on the field, fully healthy, and doing what I love to do, I don't think I really can ask for much more.
It means a lot to me. I waited for this moment for a very long time, but at the same time, you know, I'm just trying to take it one day at a time and enjoy it every day, and, you know, get better with my teammates every day.
Well, their wait is only about 6.5 hours now for kickoff at 6 p.m. on ESPN. Live in the newsroom for CTKO, I'm William Galloway.
Thank you so much, William, and we'll visit with you again a little bit later on in the program. On the defensive front, now Alabama is looking to replace second-round draft choice Raekwon Davis, who's now with the Miami Dolphins. It's a big loss. He was 6'7" and 310 pounds, but the team added a big addition, just not in a uniform. Freddie Roach is the new defensive line coach, returning to the Crimson Tide staff after 3 seasons coaching the defensive line at Ole Miss. It sounds like the former Alabama linebacker, Roach was a standout in the early 2000s for the Crimson Tide, is having an immediate impact on this defensive position, specifically the pass rush.
Yeah, Freddie Roach, that's my dog. He's a great coach. We can talk to him about anything, football, life, or whatever. And he's a great mentor, and I feel like we needed him as a group. You're going against the best, and just every day at practice, just prepare yourself mentally and physically, because the competition is outstanding.
And the Tide looks to have a couple of impact freshman pass rushers. Will Anderson, number 31, and Drew Sanders, number 16, are running 1-2 at the jack outside linebacker position. Anderson, the starter, Sanders, the backup. That's talent right there. When you can come into this program and start and be a backup as a true freshman, look out for those guys tonight. And a pair of freshmen, Malachi Moore and Brian Branch, are listed as co-starters at the star position. For Moore in particular, it's been a long road, but he's delivering on his unique skill set. Here's CTKO reporter Dylan Morgan.
When Alabama kicks off against Missouri tonight, there will be a lot of eyes on the Tide's Malachi Moore, a DB who has earned the starting spot as a true freshman and will be going against an SEC opponent in his very first game. For his high school football coach, Josh Floyd of Hewitt-Trussville, the early opportunity is not as surprising, but it does kind of feel like deja vu.
As a freshman at this level, it's not easy to do. And I remember it was on this sideline right here and took like a, I think it was a little stop route or a little screen play, something real quick, and just broke it for about 45, 50 yards. So, again, to do that, you could tell right then, okay, there's something about this guy.
Coach Floyd also contributes more success to his versatility on the field, which combined with his high football IQ and excellent work ethic instilled in him by his parents early on, makes him one dangerous DB for the Tide.
I do think the fact he's played both sides of the ball most of his life has helped, because I think, he played a lot of receiver here before we finally just said, all right, you're DB only. And I do think that helped him, because I think he understands offenses, and what receivers are trying to do.
Although he's a true freshman, he's not inexperienced in the terms of the people who have been helping him start from day one. Some of his former teammates at Hewitt include George Steele of Jacksonville State and Arkansas's Miles Mason. According to Coach Floyd, the group has referred to itself as DBU. Reporting for CTKO, I'm Dylan Morgan. Back to you.
Thank you, Dylan. Great piece. Boy, that kid is some kind of talent. Well, coming up next, Alabama soccer started 1-0 with a good offensive game against Tennessee. They looked to stay hot on the offensive end again last night at Mississippi State. And we'll speak with Crimson Tide soccer coach Wes Hart. He talks about the players' commitment to ensure a 2020 season and what makes him optimistic that this program is ready to take the next step. That's coming up next on Crimson Tide Kickoff. Last night in Starkville, Alabama soccer battled Mississippi State. The Tide got a hot start to its first road match. Freshman Felicia Knox delivered the first goal of her Alabama career, and Bama held that 1-0 lead throughout until Mississippi State, boy, this hurts. They scored in the final seconds of regulation to force overtime. Neither team budged in the OT as Alabama and Mississippi State tie 1-1. Alabama has one win and one tie in its first two matches and is back in action next weekend on the road at Florida. Well, the tie is not the finish to opening week that Alabama had hoped for, because they were riding high following last weekend's dominant win at home over Tennessee, which led to one of the players, Riley Mattingly, earning a spot on the top drawer soccer team of the week. Alabama head coach Wes Hart believes there's more awards and honors to come before this season is over. Coach Hart joined CTKO's Julia Westerman to talk about Alabama's big goals.
Tide football kicks off tonight, but soccer is already underway. I'm joined by head coach Wes Hart this morning. Good morning, Coach. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning.
This season came to be, as we've heard so many times before, under unprecedented circumstances. So what did it feel like to finally take the field to start the season when at some points this year it didn't feel like we'd be here?
Yeah, it was exciting, and the team was ready. We trained for 6 weeks and kind of not really knowing if we were going to play, if we weren't going to play. So we tried our best to prepare the group as if, hey, we got to be ready. And thankfully, the SEC did an incredible job of getting things ready for us to be able to have a start to our season. So we were ready and super excited about it.
Well, there's a good amount of returning players on the team this year. Casey Wirtz and Riley Mattingly, just to name a few. So how will their return aid in gameplay this season, as well as influence on younger players?
Yeah, they're going to be huge for us, and both of them played big roles in our win, on Saturday against Tennessee. But yeah, their leadership is going to be big because we've got quite a few young players. A big sophomore class returning, but a lot of freshmen coming in, and so I think the leadership of our older players is going to be huge.
Looking at the fact that there's an all-SEC season, what do you think that's going to do to develop your team as a whole this year?
Yeah, I think it's an incredible opportunity for us. There's a lot of conferences out there that, unfortunately for them, they don't have the ability to play games. And so we are fortunate to be able to play these games. Usually we have some non-conference games, early in the season to kind of get our feet wet and kind of iron out some of the issues. But we're thrown kind of right into the fire, right into the SEC games, and every game is a tough game. So our players don't have a whole heck of a lot of time to adjust to it. They got to just be ready. But for us, just to be able to be playing games is huge for the group.
Looking at the beginning of the season, what did you see from the team collectively, and what should they keep doing? What should they improve on?
Yeah, I thought for our first game out, for our first competitive match in nearly 6 months, the last time we played was early March, and for us to come out and have the performance that we did, we were thrilled. We thought it was a great performance for us, and we feel good about where we're at right now. Clearly we watched some game film and saw little issues here and there that we need to fix or make sure we make note of. But overall, we were very pleased with the performance of the group.
Looking back to the first game of the season and just everything that's happened over the past few months, what did it mean for you to see your players raising their voices and standing up for social issues that matter to them?
I think it's awesome, and I've told them, and will continue to tell them that I support whatever they do. So I'm going to support the player that kneels, just like I'm going to support the player that stands. I don't believe it's for me to tell people what they need to do. Everyone has got their own opinions, their own views, and right to express them how they want. So for me, it's just about being supportive of each of my players.
Thank you so much, Coach Hart. Tide Soccer returns to play next weekend versus Florida in Gainesville. Follow along with the team's progress right here on WVUA 23.
Thank you, Julia and Coach Hart. Really interesting interview. I enjoyed that and hope you did as well. Before we dive back into Alabama football's game at Mizzou, let's go around the rest of the SEC as there are 6 other games. All 14 teams are playing, 7 games total, including a top 25 showdown on the Plains. Auburn is taking on Kentucky. That game got underway at 11 a.m. The Tigers are opening their season at home. Auburn is ranked 8th in the Associated Press top 25. The Wildcats are 23rd, which makes this the first meeting in over 60 years with both teams ranked in the top 25. Attendance will be limited at Jordan-Hare Stadium, but Coach Gus Malzahn still sees the home crowd as an advantage for Auburn. He says they have the best student fan support in the country. All right, here is the Week 1 slate of SEC games in its entirety. It'll kick off along with the Auburn game early. Ole Miss and Florida kicked off this morning at 11 a.m. as well. As we mentioned, Auburn and Kentucky, both these games are already in progress. It will continue on with Mississippi State traveling down to face number 6 LSU in Baton Rouge. That's the 2:30 kick on CBS. And the Arkansas Razorbacks will be hosting the number 4 Georgia Bulldogs. Interesting there, Sam Pittman, the Arkansas coach, was the offensive line coach at Georgia the last few years. Continuing on later in the afternoon, second-ranked Alabama, as you know, will kick off its season on the road against the Missouri Tigers tonight at 6 p.m. 10th-ranked Texas A&M will be hosting the Vanderbilt Commodores tonight. And lastly, South Carolina will be at home against 16th-ranked Tennessee. That could be one of the better games of the week. Well, the SEC polls came out, and Alabama was picked to win the Western Division as well as the 2020 SEC Championship. No surprise, the Tide had 15 total players on the All-SEC team. 8 of them are on the first team. The 8 consist of seniors Landon Dickerson, Najee Harris, Alex Leatherwood, Dylan Moses, and Devontae Smith. Also, juniors LeBron Ray, Patrick Surtain, and Jalen Waddle, who is in as the all-purpose player and return specialist. In the East, the Florida Gators were picked to win the division over Georgia. It's a little surprising, maybe, by a margin of 10 points. The Bulldogs and LSU were tied for second in their divisions, while the Gators were picked, as we said, to win the SEC East. Well, Missouri football will be shorthanded in its game against Alabama, but it has a clear game plan. Hear from the Tigers next. And the latest details on just how shorthanded Missouri will be for that game, as we'll give you the injury update as well for the Tide and Tigers. Stick around. CTKO will be right back.
Well, Gordon Pettis and I worked together, and Gordon had, when Coach Byrne came in '58, Gordon started going to practice about 1960, at Coach Byrne's request. Coach Byrne's rationale was that we get penalties, let's get them on practice field, run the ball game. Anyway, Gordon came to practice about 2 years. Gordon moves to Birmingham. Carney Lashley, who was Coach Bryant's kind of right-hand man, called me trying to find Gordon, and when I told him Gordon would not be available for practice, I think Carney nearly had a stroke because he realized Coach Byrne wanted, somebody had to come, so he asked me if I officiated. I didn't tell him I'd worked in one high school game in my life, but I told him, yeah, I officiated. He said, well, you get out here to practice, and that's actually where it started. I dressed at a little filling station down here on 10th Street, and in their restroom, went to practice. Coach Bryant, when I got there, one of the managers said, Coach Bryant wants to talk to you. I can't tell you the terror and intimidation I felt walking up to talk to Coach Bryant. But Coach Bryant talked low and he mumbled. He said something like, I said, well, Coach, what do you want me to do? He said, I'm going to go watch him. I don't know what he said. I remember I said, yes, sir. And that's where it started. That was probably not, I really don't remember exactly, but it had to be around 1962.
Eddie Conyers, what a treasure that man is. Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. Happy game day. Alabama kicks off tonight against Mizzou at 6 o'clock in Columbia. Now, this week seemed to hold more challenges for the Tigers than just about any other team in the SEC. COVID concerns left Missouri with an extra hurdle to deal with while preparing for the Crimson Tide. Our Julia Westerman rejoins us now with that story. Julia?
Playbooks may be of absolute secrecy to football teams around the country, but for Missouri this season, COVID-19 information is not being treated in the same way. As of Tuesday, the Tigers will now be only missing 7 players in tonight's game. What started as 12 players out has changed due to inconclusive tests. and some of the players have since retested and been ruled negative. Missouri showed no new positives as of last Sunday's round of tests and had 2 more testing days on Wednesday and Friday. Head coach Eli Drinkwitz knows he may not have had to disclose exact numbers, but chose to for reasons beyond competition.
Transparency, this is a public health issue. It's not a competitive advantage issue. This is not an injury that we're trying to keep. This is a public health issue, and people should know, what's going on within our football team as it relates to a pandemic is where I would start. And I would say that probably, for me, more important than, whatever competitive advantage we feel like it might be to win or lose a football game.
Drinkwitz is also excited to be giving people an opportunity to just kick back and watch some SEC football. Live in the newsroom for CTKO, I'm Julia Westerman.
Thanks, Julia. Live in the newsroom with that report, our Julia Westerman. Well, Missouri's offense is centered around running back Larry Roundtree III. He's experienced. 2 years ago, he ran for over 1,000 yards, and he's productive. Roundtree's averaging over 5 yards per carry in his Missouri career. One more thing. It sounds like Roundtree has the right mentality to take into this big showdown with second-ranked Alabama.
At the end of the day, I got to play football. We got to play football and go out there and play football. Simple as that. I can't be going out there. We, as a team, can't go out there and be thinking that, oh, they're a second-ranked team, because in the end, if you go into a fight thinking you're going to lose, then you're going to lose most definitely. But if you go in with the tenacity mindset of winning, then you're going to win.
Alabama head coach Nick Saban said on Monday there's no plan for the football team to demonstrate their support of wanting social justice in this country before the season opener today. However, players have been offered T-shirts by the SEC printed with "Together" that they can wear during pregame warmups. These T-shirts are being provided to all sports on the first day of play in this 2021 season. The NCAA has also approved a rule allowing uniform patches that display messages about social injustice in the country. Well, still to come on CTKO, we go behind enemy lines and get some intel on the Missouri Tigers from Dave Matter of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. But first, Alabama Director of Athletics Greg Byrne shared an update on the Bryant-Denny Stadium renovation project and how we got to this point. And we will be home next weekend for the game against Texas A&M. We'll speak next with Byrne in this week's Byrne Point on CTKO. Welcome into another edition of the Byrne Point here on Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Gary Harris. Back by popular demand, we had such a great response from our viewers last year to the first season of the Byrne Point that the Director of Athletics at the University of Alabama, Greg Byrne, has been kind enough to join us for another season. Greg, how are you?
I'm good, Gary. How are you?
Well, I'm doing well under the circumstances. And we're going to start off by just what it's taken to get to this point. This has been a year that has been unprecedented in my lifetime and in your lifetime, and that certainly has impacted collegiate sports. Just to get back here where we're having sports at this point has taken a lot of work. Getting students back on campus, getting athletes back on campus, staff back on campus. What has it taken just to get to this point where we can have sports again?
Well, it's taken a lot of effort by a lot of people, both our student athletes, our coaches, our staff. I think back in March, I didn't even know what Zoom was. And here we are as a department. We put in thousands of hours of Zoom calls just planning. There's no playbook for this, right? There's no owner's manual how to operate under these circumstances. And we've had great leadership from our conference. Greg Sankey, our commissioner, has done a really good job. And his team, our president, Dr. Bell, has provided great leadership. Our chancellor, Fess St. John, and trustees have been very supportive throughout. And so what we've been very focused on is the health and well-being of our student athletes. And well-being is many parts of it. It's academically, it's athletically, it's socially, it's mental health, it's nutrition, a lot of moving parts to make sure we're supporting them in times that we just haven't been through before. And then we had the social unrest as well. And obviously one of the things about an athletic department, it's one of the most diverse environments out there. And so we need to make sure we're being receptive and supportive and understanding to our student athletes, our coaches and staff, and our fans as well.
Greg, there's so much attention on this first football game this evening in Columbia against Missouri, and rightfully so. But for this athletics department, it encompasses several different sports. Cross country, tennis, golf, volleyball, and soccer. And we've already had a couple of events that got off to successful starts. Jamie Reed of women's cross country won at the Vanderbilt Commodore Classic, and soccer last weekend beat Tennessee. Those events seem to not only been successful on the field for Alabama athletes, but seem to come off without a hitch. Am I correct?
Yeah, they actually went very well. Our cross-country team was the first one to compete, and that happened on Saturday morning, and we sent them off on Friday afternoon, kind of for the first team trip since everything this happened. And that was something that a lot of time and effort went into pulling that off. And so, we were really pleased with the way the team responded, especially the women. They finished second overall, which was great. And then we had soccer later that afternoon. We had a great start, 3-1. We go over to Mississippi State Friday night to play the Bulldogs. And then obviously all eyes are going to be on our football team Saturday with the trip to Columbia, Missouri. And I couldn't be at cross country. It was up in Nashville, but I was at soccer on Saturday, and I don't know if I've ever been more excited about a soccer game in my life. Just to get back out on the field, because I remember in March, it was March 11th, I had talked to Nate Oates the night before, late about 11 o'clock at night, and I said, Nate, I need you to keep your phone with you. I think we're going to try to play on the 11th, but there's just so much we don't know, and so keep your phone with you on the court. I may have to call you and tell you, that it's not going to happen or it is going to happen. And so I think probably about 20 minutes before tip or so, half hour before tip, I called Nate. I said, it's been canceled and we need to pull everybody off the floor. And I wanted to get over and see the team, and I couldn't get out of the meeting I was in. And I think the very next day we were back here in Tuscaloosa, and had to meet with all of our head coaches and tell them that spring sports was canceled. And I tell you, I was devastated, and as so many people were, for our student athletes, for our coaches. The softball was playing really well. Our track and field teams were doing great. Brad Bohannon had the baseball team. I think our community was as excited for an SEC weekend, which we were going to play Missouri that weekend, open up an SEC playing baseball, as any baseball series we've had in a long time. And so that was challenging, golfs and tennises and everybody else. But we're back at it now, and it's fun to see it. And we need to try to I just look forward to having the opportunity to have our kids out competing, and we just need to do everything we can to keep them as safe as possible and move forward. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, talking about soccer, I said last weekend, I know Wes Hart's enjoying this. I don't know if there's ever been as much attention on a soccer match at the University of Alabama as there was that one. And for Alabama to get the win over rival Tennessee was certainly a great start to this fall sports season. As you said, all the way from March until September, without live sports on the University of Alabama campus. And now with the football game, even though it's on the road, what does that represent in your mind, not only as the athletics director, but just as a citizen of this country and a member of the Southeastern Conference? When Alabama and Missouri run out on that football field in Columbia, I'm excited for the football aspect, but I think it represents a lot more. Do you?
Yeah, Gary, I really do. I mean, so much of what athletics does is it brings people together, and it gives us things to be united on. And, and I mentioned earlier, but I've been in college athletics literally my entire life. And so I've been around a lot of diverse, different environments. And so I think as a society and everything going on, we need ways to bring everybody together. And I think our community, our student athletes, our coaches, we're going to have that opportunity on Saturday from a football program standpoint. I think it's going to be good for our kids. I think it's going to be good for our athletic department of the Southeastern Conference. It's going to be good for the state of Alabama and good for our country. And that's a good thing right now. And so I'm really happy that we get to go out, and I always jokingly say go play some tackle intercollegiate football, and that'll be this Saturday evening, and so we get on. There's it's a scaled down group who's traveling, but we're gonna travel Friday late afternoon to Columbia, and man, I'm not going to get my ankles taped, but I'll be ready to play.
Well, that's going to be a great night. And, of course, Saturday, October 3rd, next Saturday, Alabama will have its first home game against Texas A&M. We'll discuss that coming up in the next Byrne Point. For Greg Byrne, I'm Gary Harris, and this has been the Byrne Point. Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23. I'm Gary Harris. The Tide takes on the Missouri Tigers tonight for the first game of the football season in 2020. We're taking a look at the game from a different perspective today. We're going to the opposite side of the field and talk to the enemy. William Galloway rejoins us from the newsroom with that story.
The enemy. So we're going behind enemy lines, Gary. Talk to Dave Matter, who works for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. He's covered the Missouri Tigers for years. He does a great job. And for this game tonight in particular, when it comes to Missouri, the key for them, he said, is the defense.
If they're going to beat anybody or be competitive against the best teams on the schedule, it's got to start with the defense. They were a top 15 unit last year nationally and in most categories, scoring defense, total defense, yards per play, pretty good against the pass. And they bring back, like you said, a handful of those starters, including their best player, Nick Bolton, a weak side linebacker who, between him and Dylan Moses, I'd say they're the best linebackers in the SEC or the most accomplished.
Nick Bolton led the SEC with 8.92 tackles per game last season, but against a team like Alabama, it's going to take everything you have.
You just have to limit the big plays as much as you can and, try to steal some possessions with takeaways. The big challenge for this defense is going to be getting pressure on the quarterback, not just this week, but every week.
The Alabama offensive line won't make that easy. The Crimson Tide has just about every advantage in this game. We may even see some trick plays tonight from the Tigers.
I think surprise is the key word. I don't know if there's any weaknesses to exploit, but maybe the only real advantage Missouri has is just the element of surprise, not just with who's going to play quarterback, but what this offense is going to look like.
We'll keep an eye on the offense, but we'll also keep an eye on the stadium. Matter says with COVID restrictions, less than 12,000 fans will be inside Memorial Stadium tonight.
I think in normal circumstances, this game would be a sellout. You've got a new head coach people are excited about. People want to come see Alabama. Alabama surely would have some fans there. But we know that's not the case with COVID, with the restrictions, with all the social distancing rules. So, yeah, they're going to be around 20% capacity. About 1,000 students is where they're going to cap things off at.
I had a great conversation with Dave, and I hope you enjoyed that segment. We'll do that every week here on Crimson Tide Kickoff. In the newsroom for CTKO, I'm William Galloway.
Great job, William. We look forward to that segment every week. And some terrific information from Dave Matter of the St. Louis Dispatch. The saying in football is you win and lose in the trenches. That would seem to play into Alabama's strength. In fact, Cole Kubelik of the SEC Network believes one of the Tide's biggest strengths is up front. Alabama will have 4 returning starters on the offensive line this year. When ranking the top 5 offensive lines in the SEC, Kubelik listed Alabama at number 1, followed by Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Florida was at number 5. But you see the Crimson Tide leading the way, and those big boys, they're trying to make some room for those offensive playmakers tonight. Well, still to come on CTKO, Alabama's depth chart didn't clear up all the questions at all the positions. We'll explain. But first, Tuscaloosa Mayor Walt Maddox sits down with WVUA 23's Mike Royer to talk about football season and the potential impact on local businesses. That's coming up next on CTKO.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Mike Royer, joined today by Mayor Walt Maddox, the mayor of Tuscaloosa. Mayor, it's good to see you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Over the years, I've watched mayors of cities in Alabama, Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Huntsville, and I think being a mayor looks like a pretty good job. You cut a ribbon now and then, you argue with the council about money. This is a year, 2020, where I wouldn't have had your job for anything. Has this been the most challenging year of you being mayor of this city?
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, in Tuscaloosa, the mayor, you're also the city manager. And so balancing both of those in a year of COVID that's unprecedented, there's no playbook for, since we're talking about football, it has been the most difficult and challenging because whether it's budgetary, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, whatever it is, if COVID is touching it and it's impacting all your decision making.
On this program today, we're talking, thankfully, about football once again. Yes. And I heard you mention in the hallway, everyone seems to have a little better attitude right now because there's at least good news down the road that we've got a game here next coming up on Saturday with Texas A&M, and won't be a packed out stadium, but we're getting sort of back to normal a little bit. Your thoughts about that?
Well, besides our faith and our family, I would say football is in the top three of most people in this city. And so to have football return with a visiting game this week, a home game next week, I think for everybody it's a sense of normalcy. And I think we've been struggling to find that since March. So for everyone, we're not back to where we need to be yet, but you almost feel like this is the first big step in a long time towards regaining our lives. I'm glad to have football back.
It's a two-way street, I know. The University of Alabama is very important to the city of Tuscaloosa, but the city of Tuscaloosa is very important to the University of Alabama. Infrastructure, places for people to live, good, safe downtown restaurants. How important, though, is football weekends to the city of Tuscaloosa?
Well, economically, it's millions for our local businesses, so certainly that has an impact, and that's going to result in better tax revenues for our schools and for our city. So I think that's important. But this year, I would put another quality to that, and that's just our lives. This is going to give us a sense of living again as a community, that we're back, albeit a different shade of being back, but back nonetheless. And to me, I think that's the big step forward, the excitement coming out of this. And won't it be nice once we get through that first home game to start talking about who we play? Right now it's just about playing.
Yeah. Will we get to play?
Yeah. Now we get to talk about who will we be playing. And I think that to me is really an exciting part of where we are.
It means a lot financially to the city and the university and the entire state when football is played on all campuses in the state. How much stress is it, though, for your workload? Police, fire, all the people that have to work those Saturdays, they're not coming and sitting and watching football. They're working. How much do you have to man up for those football weekends?
Several hundred a game.
Wow.
And we spend over $1 million a year just in personnel costs supporting Alabama football. Homeland security certainly is the biggest aspect of that. We have nearly every police officer, nearly every firefighter, a large share of public works, a large share of revenue officers. So we have really about 500 employees that work game day specifically just to support Alabama football.
A mayor of any size can't make a decision without getting criticized and praised. You've taken heat for some of the decisions you've made about when bars can be open, about mask wearing, but the things that the governor's done, the things that you've done, the things other mayors have done in this state of Alabama, it looks like are going to be proven to be working. We're getting numbers down some. You have optimism today that we're really making progress.
I think we are. Now, certainly you don't know. There could be an institutional spread. There could be something out there that we've never seen before. But we'll go back to August 24th when we had to close the bars for 2 weeks. We were on the precipice of not only losing in-person instruction, of losing football season itself. We had to make some tough decisions. But out of that, we're talking about Alabama playing on the road this week, playing at home next week against Texas A&M. If we would have made the hard decisions, I believe we wouldn't be in the position to do this. As a mayor, you should take on, you decided to run. I decided to run. I need to make the tough decisions. I'm glad we've done that.
And who would have thought, how many years have you been mayor?
15.
15 years. Who would have thought back when you first term, if you would have known what you had to face the 15th year, you might have gone, I'm not sure I want to run again. It has been very, very tough, I know. The university can control the number of people that get into the stadium. They can somewhat control campus and how many people are around. Are you concerned about crowds downtown? And do you have any guidance for fans that'll be coming to town? Be careful, do all the things you're supposed to do.
Well, we are a little concerned because, again, there's no playbook for it. So I believe the first home game on October 3rd, we're actually going to be using that as an observation opportunity. We're going to take a look at crowd flows, parking, traffic patterns, where people go after the game. That will probably then build upon the next home game of what we're going to do. For now, we're going to try to limit tailgating, but let's be clear. There's no way the city city can stop every house party, every impromptu tailgate. We're just going to have to rely on the better angels of people's nature to do the right things, practice common sense, so we can continue to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus.
Mass social distancing, it's still good advice on football weekends or any other time.
Why not? We've gone this far. Let's finish the job.
Mayor Maddox, it's great to see you. We'll look forward to having 20,000 people in the stands roughly for this game, and maybe with that can grow every week and we can get back to maybe a full house sometime. Thanks for your leadership. Thanks for your time today. We appreciate it.
Hey, Mike, that sounds like a plan.
We'll go back to Gary Harris.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks to Mayor Maddox. That was some great information. Alabama coach Nick Saban says the team will travel and has taken just one punter to Missouri to play the Tigers, but which one? We're not sure. Sam Johnson, Charlie Scott, Ty Pirine, all listed as co-starters. There is an and/or next to the group and on the Tide's depth chart. At the kicker position, however, it looks like that Will Reichard is going to be the place kicker for tonight. He has looked good in the fall camp. And the last word from Alabama Nick Saban and Missouri coach Eli Drinkwitz is coming up. We'll be back right after this.
Well, it definitely is a beautiful day here in Tuscaloosa. Wouldn't you agree, Gary? It's pretty nice out there.
Absolutely. What can we look for the rest of the day?
Well, actually, we're going to see some fairly nice temperatures here for Tuscaloosa. If you have any game day activities, it is going to be a beautiful day. You can see on our SkyCam here on the Walk of Champions, we're sitting at 81 degrees, so we're warming up pretty nicely now. What about our friends that are going to be competing today in that football game? Well, it looks like it's going to be nice in Columbia, Missouri at kickoff, as we're going to be at 84 degrees. Look, we're going to stay dry throughout a lot of the day and 70 degrees by the end of the game. So what do you think about that, Gary? I think they have some beautiful weather to play in.
I love it, Christopher. And I said we'd get the final word from Nick Saban and Eli Drinkwitz. We're out of time, so I'll tell you what the final word is. We're all ready to play football. Thanks for watching CTKO, an encore presentation coming up at 1. Have a great day.